What is Sri Lanka's national policy? Do we have an economic policy to drive our economy to the next level? Where does the country stand today in terms of Sri Lankan politics? What are the trade agreements that is really bothering the trade unions here in Sri Lanka? To discuss all this and more, I have the man himself, the State Minister of National Policy and Economic Affairs, State Minister Mr. Niroshan Perera. A very good evening and welcome to the show, Mr. Perera. Starting off, what is your role as a State Minister of National Policy and Economic Affairs?
As you know, National Policies and Economic Ministry is under the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. We are the main policy-making body inside the government. We coordinate all the other ministries as well, and we set the direction where Sri Lanka should head in terms of economic policy as well. So we play a very important role. We are under the Prime Minister, so we have a very active role in managing the economy as well.
Yes. Your cabinet has two separate individuals, that is the cabinet minister and then the state minister. What is the role of the state minister? Does he play the role of a deputy minister, or does he play a role that is bigger than that?
I think he plays a role bigger than the deputy minister because...
in what sense?
Actually, if you take this ministry, the cabinet minister has gazetted certain specific functions to the state minister. That's how the ministry is run. So I'm in charge of most of the youth affairs side of the ministry, but that doesn't mean that I'm limited to that. I work with the cabinet minister in running the ministry.
You were the Minister of Youth Affairs right after the January 8th elections. And then you were the Minister of National Policy and Economic Affairs following the August 17th elections. How do you see the shift in roles?
Well, my responsibility has broadened. I am, especially if you take the parliamentary side, I have to answer most of the questions in Parliament relating to this ministry. We have a lot of institutions under this ministry, not only youth affairs, but on the economic side as well. So my responsibilities have broadened. Also, important institutions like the Central Bank, External Resources Department, and National Planning, all those departments are within this ministry. So we play a very crucial role headed by the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka.
Does Sri Lanka have a national policy? And if so, what exactly is our policy?
Yeah, I think the Prime Minister was very clear in Parliament. He announced the national policy for Sri Lanka. As you know, we have a lot of challenges facing this country. So it's very important that we have very sound national policy to take the country forward.
What is the policy that we're talking about?
Well, in terms of economic policy, he was very clear that we need to be very competitive. We have to understand the reality of the world economy, and we have to be very competitive, and we have to actually train our youth and our labor force to withstand that challenge. Also, we need to attract investments, foreign investments, and technical know-how. I think with that we can take the country forward.
The Prime Minister made this submission in Parliament several months or several weeks before the budget came into being. It's been several months now, Mr. Perera. However, just last month alone, our reserves dropped to a staggering $1 billion US. What is happening to the country's economy?
No, I think we have to face the reality of the world economy, because now if you look at China, China is slowing down. And also the US, they have increased the interest rates. So the developing world is under somewhat of pressure. So I think Sri Lanka is not immune to that. But we have to look at the long-term picture. We have actually a set of policies where we will be very strong in a couple of years' time, and we can withstand this challenge.
Wasn't this envisaged when your government took power on the August 17th elections last year?
No, I think we knew the challenges. If you look at the previous regime, we have a lot of projects which they have taken loans, but which are not producing any income. If you take the Hambantota port or the Mattala airport or the Surya stadium, there are a lot of projects which a lot of loans were taken, and we have to pay those loans as well. And in 2012, there was an agreement with the IMF. They took out a loan, billions of dollars. So till this year, October this year, we have to pay that loan. So there's a lot of challenges, but there have been, because of the interest rate hike in the US, there has been a shift in capital from developing countries back to the US, so that we are facing that challenge. Yes.
Prior to the elections, Mr. Pereira, your government, the UNP-led government, said that the Hambantota projects were a white elephant. In particular, the Hambantota airport project, the Mattala airport project, was a white elephant. However, now it seems that your government is not even closing down operations. And what are you all doing with this project in question now?
No, I think the Prime Minister visited that area. Actually, the Prime Minister has a plan actually to have the Hambantota development focusing on the Hambantota port and the
After
airport.
all, it is not a bad project if that is the case, isn't it?
Yes, but now, I mean, if you look at the Hambantota airport, that was targeting passengers, but we plan to target the cargo in that area. So, but we have to have the industrial parks and all those necessary things to get this moving, which is not a very, you can't do it in the short term. So we have to have a very long-term plan.
How long will it take?
I think we need about 2 years, I think, to actually get the foreign investment and set up the parks and get these things ready and to start generating income. So we plan, it's not a very set time, but we have already started the process where if you look at the Chinese, they have already agreed to come to Hambantota and set up an industrial park. So I think the process is ongoing. We need to actually have a very sound team to implement and carry this forward.
If you all had a plan, why was the decision taken, Mr. Pereira, to store paddy in an international airport?
No, I think that was a very temporary move where some of the buildings were very idling, and there was a need to store paddy. So that was taken, but that was not a long-term plan. Actually, we have a long-term plan to convert the airport into a profit-making venture.
One of the allegations leveled by many folks in Sri Lanka is the fact that prior to the August 8th, one of the allegations leveled by majority of the people here in Sri Lanka is the fact that prior to the January 8th presidential poll, there was money in the country. However, now there seems to be a problem. Are we bankrupt, Mr. Pereira? Do we have money to fund ourselves? Do we have money to provide concessions to the general public of the country?
Now, if you look at our foreign policy, actually, before January 8th, I think we were having problems with most of the developed world. We had a problem with the US, we had a problem with the EU, we lost the GSP+, we lost the EU fishing exports. We were having a problem with some of the Muslim countries because of what was happening in Sri Lanka. But now we have actually balanced all those things. Even China, actually, we had a discussion with them, so they are ready to fund us. So I think the funding has actually increased now. We are the main coordinating ministry for foreign funding, and I can assure you the funding has increased. So there's enough money.
One of the decisions taken by your regime as soon as you all came into power was stopping a Chinese project in the Gulf Face, which is known as the Port City project. What is happening to that, Minister?
No, we were very clear that anything which was impacting our environment, that we were going to take a look at it. So we have taken, I mean, we talked to the Chinese, we said we need some time, we need to re-evaluate the project. So we have done that. We have gone back to the Chinese, we have told them that the project has to be in a smaller area, than which was previously planned. So they have agreed. So we are going ahead with the project. We don't have any problems with the project, but anything which is impacting our environment, we have to take a stance. So we have taken that.
You said that you all have reduced the area in which the project is going to take place or going to be implemented. What is the area that we're talking about right now?
Right now, I think the original plan was for about 280 hectares. So we have told them we would like to have about 200 hectares. So
The project is going to be completed in the due date, or will it take more time?
yeah, so we are negotiating with the Chinese now. So during that negotiations, they will come up with a action plan how to implement it.
Is additional funding going to be also
Well, the
something
funding is going to be totally Chinese. We don't put any funding. So it's up to the Chinese to redesign the project and.
Is additional funding going to be made by the Chinese government as far as the port city is concerned, or is it going to be the same allocated amount of money that was agreed upon by the previous regime?
I think with the reduction of the area, they might have to recalculate. I don't think you'll need additional funding because the area is going to be reduced. But I think they are in the process of negotiations.
Many pledges were made by your government, Mr. Pereira, over the last few months. One in particular was bringing in a fuel price formula. World prices in terms of fuel has now drastically dropped. However, that benefit is not being passed on to the general public. What is the reason behind this?
No, I think we have been working on that for a while. The problem is during the previous regime, some of these institutions, they were making huge losses. And even today, there was a question in Parliament along these lines. So they are actually trying to stabilize the situation because as a country, we have taken a massive amount of loans for these institutions and we need to pay them off. So that was one concern that we have. But as soon as we stabilize the situation, all the benefits will be passed to the customers. As you know, soon as we came to power, we reduced the price of fuel to a manageable level. So we need to actually go further and give that benefit to the public.
How long will it take, Mr. Pereira?
I'm not sure about that, but I think the minister and the deputy minister, they are working on it. Yes.
The Prime Minister in Davos met with IMF officials and said that they're looking for a SBA or a standby arrangement. Is that still on?
Yes, we have formally asked for a standby arrangement so that the negotiations are going on. If we need in the future, we will go with it. Yeah.
However, speaking at a media briefing yesterday, the governor of the central bank said that they would not go with a begging bowl to the IMF anymore because we are now a developed country. SBA is still in place, Mr. Pereira?
It's still in place.
But the governor is holding a different opinion?
No, the governor, I think what he's talking about is that we are a middle income country. Earlier we were low income country, so we have special conditions when we negotiate with these institutions. But the reality is different now. So we are a middle income country, so we have to act according to that.
So the governor is of the view that SBA is not necessary, but the Prime Minister is of the view that SBA is necessary.
No, I think
two different schools of thought.
No, not two different schools of thought. It's just the level the country is in. I think the governor was saying that we are a middle income country and
no need of SBA.
No, we need because I think the governor has agreed on that. Yes.
Moving on, yes. Mr. Pereira, your website is very, very interesting. It speaks about sustainable development. Are you aware?
Yes.
What is sustainable development in your eyes, Mr. Pereira?
No, sustainable development is actually, as you know, the country as a nation, we need to look at our people. We need to look at our environment. We need to look at our youth, our future generations. So we have to take all this into account when we do development. So I think in the past, when the world was developing, sometimes these key fundamental things were forgotten, and some of the nations, they had to pay the price. So I think would like to avoid those things and go forward.
Mr. Pereira, at the outset of this interview, I said you were first the State Minister of Youth Affairs. Now you are the State Minister of National Policy and Economic Affairs. And we just spoke about sustainable development and how Sri Lanka should move forward in terms of concreting a better future for the youth of this island nation. However, with individuals changing in 7 to 8 months, how can you ensure sustainable development in a country like Sri Lanka? Because individuals who come into play, who take portfolios, are of different ideologies, different schools of thought. How can we really achieve sustainable development that your ministry is talking about?
No, I think the vision of the President and the Prime Minister is very clear. They are aligned. I think we have a different political culture in this country, which is to work together to achieve our goals. We might, in the past, we might have a difference of opinion, but I think it's very important to the future of our country that we have a national policy going forward, because as you know, when different governments were elected, there was a shift in, broad shift in policy. That I think has negatively affected our country. But I think to face the global challenges, I think we need national policy. I think it's very clear that we need to understand the reality of the world. If you don't understand the reality of the world, if you are playing to the political gallery, I think this country will shift back and forth. But I think if we have a national policy, if our leaders can agree on what is needed for this country to take forward, and if we can get the youth to play an important role in that development, I think we can actually develop this country.
I want to drag your attention to the Geneva UN sponsored resolution, which was co-sponsored by Sri Lanka, Mr. Pereira. Just in January, the President, making a statement to the BBC, said that foreign justices will not be brought to Sri Lanka. However, a few days later, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, speaking to Channel 4, said that they would adhere to the resolution that was co-sponsored by Sri Lanka in September last year. A bit confusing, isn't it?
No, I think
two schools of thought. Are they really working together?
No, I think they are the same school of thought. As you know, what President said was that we have a very good judicial system in this country. I think we have strengthened it after we came to power. We have made it more independent. So I think it's capable of taking care of all these issues. But what the Prime Minister was saying, that we are open to getting technical assistance from other countries. So we are open to working with the UN system. We don't have anything to hide. I think we have, our armed forces have done an excellent job. But there could be 1 or 2 cases where some allegations are there. So we need to clear those things. So I think it's very important that we clear those allegations and we move forward from our wartime past and we focus on the economy. So that's what I think the President and the Prime Minister were saying.
Mr. Pereira, you said your judicial system in this country is more independent. Is it not independent, or has it just improved from the past?
No, I think there were some allegations in the past, how it was handled by the previous leaders. But I think the President and the Prime Minister, they had made a clear stance that politics should not interfere with the independence of the judiciary. So we have actually with the 19th Amendment also, we have made it clear that functioning of the government will be for the people, that it won't be for the politicians. So I think we need to further strengthen it. I think we have some ways to go, but I think we need to actually improve the system.
Mr. Pereira, EDCA, the Economic Technology Cooperation Agreement that is to be signed with India, is it going ahead?
It's going ahead, yes.
When is it due to be signed? In June, as proposed by...
We are hoping to do it in June, yes. Middle of this year, yes.
Has discussions concluded? Have we submitted our draft resolution to India?
Not yet, but we hope to finish it soon, yes.
Transfer of natural persons between both nations, is that clause still in place?
No, I think the Prime Minister made it very clear that we won't just open our economy for Indian workers to come and work here. There's already a system in place, as you know, not only in India, but even the Chinese companies, when they were building the highways or the power plants, they also had the technical expertise. So we are open to getting the technical expertise, but not at the expense of the Sri Lankan workers. So the Prime Minister made it clear that it won't be open border situation where what the opposition is saying, where every Indian will come and try to take jobs from Sri Lanka.
Do you think negotiations and dialogue is important between the government and trade union activists and even professional organizations on EDCA?
Yes, very much. I think we have to start that process, but we have to make it clear that what we are going to do. I think that's very important. And already the Chamber of Commerce, they have actually welcomed it. But I think we need to educate the people. I think it's very important that very important agreements like this that the people should be aware of.
The Prime Minister of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, making a submission at an event in Colombo, says that whoever thinks whatever they want to do, they can do so, but I will go ahead and implement this proposal. I am even ready to field 10 people. If they field one person, I will show my strength as well. A submission made by your leader, the Prime Minister of this nation. Seems like he does not want dialogue anymore. He wants to do whatever he wants to do, isn't it?
No, I think you have to look at the principle. I think as a nation, I think we should act as a gateway to India. That's our principle. So to act as a gateway to India, just like if you take the Colombo port, we are the gateway to the India. So I think to implement that policy, I think we need an agreement with India, like ECTA. But he didn't specify how we are going to do it. That's under negotiation. So that's, as a principal stance, that's what he was saying.
Are we acting based on the whim and fancy of the Indian government led by Narendra Modi?
No, I don't think we need to act on their behalf, but we need to act on our behalf, because I think if you look at the Indian market, that's a very crucial market for our future. A lot of the other countries that were ready to invest in Sri Lanka, they want access to the Indian market through the Sri Lankan economy. So I think we are trying to provide that. But when we are providing that we may want to make sure that we protect the Sri Lankan companies and Sri Lankan workers as well.
Mr. Pereira, the Sri Lankan government is now getting very close to the West, something that we have not seen for many, many years. In particular, the last 1 decade or so, we have not seen a government getting so close to the Western world. Do you think that the present regime is getting too close to the West and distancing itself from major powerhouses in the region like China?
No, I don't think we are distancing from China. We are very close to China, actually. We had even recently we had negotiations, and China is willing to help us. China has been a long-standing friend of ours. Even during the war, China was with us. But we have rebalanced our foreign policy. We want to be friends with everybody. We want to have economic cooperation as well as cultural cooperation with everybody. So we don't need any enemies in this world. I don't think going forward that would be helpful to Sri Lanka. So with the West, we have balanced our relationship. I think that's working very well. We are getting benefits, both economic benefits as well as cultural benefits. But with the Chinese side, we have actually recently concluded our negotiations. So they are willing to help us. They will actually invest in this country. Even the infrastructure projects, we have submitted our proposals and they have accepted. So I think the relationship is very strong with all the countries.
Mr. Pereira, you spoke about economic policy in Sri Lanka. The governor of the central bank's term is going to come to an end in June this year. Will he be replaced, or will there be an extension to his term in office?
I think there's going to be extension to his office.
Why is that, Mr. Pereira? What is the logic behind that?
No, I think he's doing a good job. I think he's handling all the central bank functions well. So then I don't think there's any need to replace him.
But just a year ago,
Yeah.
Mr. Pereira, there was an issue surrounding a bond scandal at the central bank, which is a quite known fact. And many are of the opinion that if the UNP government or the UNP lost the election on the 17th of August, it may have come at the cost of this bond scam. And you are quite well aware of it.
Yeah.
An extension, he's doing a good job. I'm wondering, I'm
Yeah.
trying to put everything together. I'm expecting an answer from you. Do you
No,
think so as well?
No, I think there's nothing to hide. Actually, if you look at the investigations into some of the allegations, we have already submitted those things to Parliament. The Parliament is aware, and the Governor was there in Parliament yesterday and even today. So all, not even during after the January 8th function, but even before that, all the activities of the central bank will be investigated, and if there's any wrongdoing, those will be punished, those officials will be punished. But I think going into the future, we need to have a very stable team in the central bank. That's very important. So I think we will take that forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Niroshan Pereira, for joining us this evening on Biz1st in Focus. Pleasure was all mine today.
Thank you very much.